So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our second webinar. We're getting better at using the software. This is a series on the JETAA Toolbox. We're excited. We're starting out with 3 topics, and we'll go from there. I think I know everyone that's on the call, but just in case, I'm Laurel Lukashevsky. I'm the Executive Director of USJETAA. And the webinar series, it's being supported by Claire and the Japan Foundation Center for Global Partnership. So thanks to their support, it enables us to present this. Also, anyone can speak. Like, you can unmute yourself and speak whenever you need to. We'll leave time at the end for a question and answer sort of discussion session. So at that point, you can unmute yourself if you have a question or part of the discussion. There's also the chat feature, and you can either send a message to everyone or you can send it to specific people that are on the call. So just so you're aware of that, and you can do that throughout. We have about an hour, and I just wanted to also let you know, so we have today's program thanks to Monica Yuki in New York, and Mark Frey in Northern California and San Francisco, and Jessica Burbach in Washington, D.C. They'll be our presenters today, and I'm looking forward to what they have to share. I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball over to Monica and to get us started. So thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to hearing the program.
Thank you, Laurel and USJETAA and Claire and CPG for hosting this really great event for us. I'm going to set up my PowerPoint here. Okay. Again, my name is Monica Yuki. I was on a JET in Saitama from 2002 to 2004. And for the past 12 years, I've been here in New York, a part of the JETAANY chapter, holding various leadership roles. I really love being involved because of the great connections, friendships, opportunities that I've been able to have. But really the most rewarding thing is getting to work with just a great group of people who are all really passionate about Japan. So to get started, I think the way to really look at what it takes to implement an effective program or an event is you need to understand what is your goal, or what do you consider to be a successful event. And this is going to vary from event to event. And by understanding what the end goals or results are your chapter is trying to gain by hosting an event, will really make it more of a successful event. So of course it can be one or more of these things, but if you have a strong idea of what you hope to get out of it, it makes it more beneficial for everyone involved. I never like to judge the success of an event solely on the number of attendees, but of course having 50 people show up to something is awesome, but having 5 or 8 people show up to a coffee language exchange meetup can be very productive, and membership enrichment and just engagement overall. So there's a few things that I like to keep in mind to get on the path to success, to have an effective program. So know your audience. What are your members' interests, spending threshold, demographics, makeup? You need to understand your audience. Yesterday, Kyle shared some very important tips on planning for family. She mentioned you can't have an event on a Saturday at 1 p.m. for families because that's nap time. Knowing your audience also means knowing how to price an event. We all do cost sharing with our GA funds, but also need to make something affordable and attractive for someone to attend. The next thing is supply and demand. Hosting the right number of events to keep your chapter top of mind, but without overdoing it and creating events that are just have to have one because you haven't had one in the past month or so. Membership geography. Most of JETAANY's events are happening here in Manhattan because it's a good central place for people to get to. However, we try to host events like all the outer boroughs, not only to give us a chance to explore other parts of the city, but it also draws out different parts of our membership. And I know chapters can do that across the country depending on their sub-chapter levels or how spread apart they are. But over the years, we've really tried to work hard to find our members and keeping them engaged. And everyone thinks New York has it so easy because we have so many members and so many events. But as you can imagine, there are hundreds of things to do here in New York City all the time. So hosting the right events and grabbing the attention of our members is really key. So next up is manpower. I think in order to have an effective program implementation requires a lot of support and teamwork. I'm very lucky here in New York because we have a strong leadership team. We have a very active executive board that hosts multiple events a month, which gets the support of the board of directors, and we're lucky that our members also like to step up and host events. We know that one of the biggest problems with chapters in general is burnout, and it takes a lot of manpower to host these events. So if we can build a strong team that can help each other when a person's time is strained, then it will not affect the entire chapter. And the last one up is resource and funding. So like all chapters, we are so grateful for the support of Claire through our grant and aid and the funds from MOFA. We like to see these funds as seed money, though, to invest in an event to make it better. We try to implement cost sharing for all events, so the burden of cost sharing by JETAA and members attending. We're lucky in the city that we have so many great partnerships with US Japan organizations so that we can piggyback or work together on a lot of events. So I recently hosted a brainstorm session here in New York, drawing ideas from our members who are looking to get involved, interested in the growth of the chapter, personal leadership skills, and gaining event planning skills. And they came up with so many fabulous events for us to host in 2017. And these are just some of the guidelines that I shared that an event must follow if they want to have cost sharing through JETAA. So an event doesn't meet one of these requirements, then JETAANY can't subsidize the event, but it's not the end of the world because it can be supported by the members that are attending. It can be a free event. It can be something in the park. There's so many other ways to get around that to host a very successful event. So I'm just going to take you through the quick path of what New York follows in order to have an event. So starting with selecting a date on the way, all the way through the event wrap-up. So the key elements are selecting a proper location, membership involvement, and very important to advertise, get the information out, and then of course the follow-up, not only for the reports that we have to submit for JETAA funds, but in general so that we can learn from what we've done from year to year. Okay. The events here in New York are broken out into the following categories. So I just plan to breeze through some of these, mainly just to hope, spark some ideas for chapters to replicate in their area. I think it's important for us to kind of collaborate with other chapters and share ideas because some of these events actually started here in New York and now other chapters are doing them across the country, which really makes us feel kind of proud that they've been working. So things like the 10+ reunions, book clubs, Meiji Exchange, Nihongo Dake dinners, and partnerships with outside organizations like Big Brother, Big Sister. And of course, we've learned so many things from other chapters in order to replicate them here in New York. Okay. I think another important thing is these are just kind of our big annual events, but it's knowing what you have going on for the entire year. Make a plan for the entire year so that you can have a good balance. So what we've done is we've put out, these are all the events that happen all throughout the year, and they're kind of targeted, can only happen at this time, especially like the Returners Conference or pre-departure seminars. And then within that, we can place smaller interest group events, one-off events, piggyback events, and so much more. So what I really want to focus on here is JETAANY, mainly because it just happened this past weekend, and it had very successful implementation. We've been hosting JETAANY for the past 10 years in a partnership with the Big Brother, Big Sister organization. And the key to the success this year was the great leadership skills of Nicole Knight, who managed all the volunteers, communicated the instructions, and really relied on all the volunteers to take ownership of their portion of the event, from the pre-planning to taking photos to writing recaps. So we're very thankful for, definitely this year, the monetary support of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation and USJETAA, which allowed us to buy more supplies for the event that we'll be able to store for year to year so we can host this event again. So I'm just going to run through some of the quick stations that we host. This is a chopstick challenge where the kids get to learn how to use chopsticks and they get timed. And we write down their names and keep track of it. So it's kind of like a small competition. And they practice picking up various types of products. This is a karate demonstration, and really thankful to this grant, we're able to offer an honorarium to a local karate dojo that we have a connection with, and he came with some of his students and put on a great demonstration and then actually taught the attendees a few of the moves. onigiri station. Through the grant, we're able to buy rice cookers, so we have those for years to come, and all the little pieces that are necessary in order to teach the kids about how to make onigiri, how to use the nori punch to make faces on them, and then of course they can try it. So it's always fun to see what their reaction is when they first get to try seaweed. This year with the grant, we were also able to purchase the little clappers that are used for the yosakoi dance lesson. One of our alumni was a part of a group in Japan while she was on JET, and so now she's able to teach a quick lesson to all the kids at this JETAANY event. So the reason why I wanted to focus on JETAANY is because it's something that other chapters can host. I highly recommend getting in touch with the local community center, their big brother, big sister organization, or just host it on your own. It's just a great way to connect with the community and teach kids about Japan who may not have firsthand access to it. Also through the grant, we were able to purchase these yukatas, male and female, some kid ones also, and we teach them how to put it on, and then they get to take a photo with their big brother or big sister. Some of the other things we host are just special events. These are just large-scale events that only happen one time, but pretty proud of. And then the thing I really want to focus on is our special interest group. It's something new that we have been doing and had fabulous results. We're turning to our members and tapping into their skills and interests and building events around that. Our members are now implementing successful events and programs around things they're passionate about. We have a very strong book club that meets almost every other month and has very well attended thanks to the dedication of the alumni leader. Last week we had 2 JETs present on how to start a business, and last year we had a wonderful photography lesson walking around Central Park. All of these are successful because they're hosted by someone who saw a need for the chapter, and they're given the freedom to take the idea and really run with it. JETAANY supports their ideas through GIA needs if it's needed, and help advertise the event. I think the most successful events really get implemented and followed through by someone who's passionate about it. It's really hard to tell someone, go plan such and such event, but if they already have a general interest in it, they're going to want to see it all the way through to the end. And like I said, you don't need to have 50 people show up to an event. If you're able to find 3 JETs who have a common interest in something and find a day of the week that works for the 3 of them, you put that event out there, you put it on social media, you advertise it to the membership, and hopefully people will just come. There's some more special interest groups, just based off of things that our members are already interested in doing. So I just briefly wanted to focus on one of the special interest groups we created by 2 avid JETAANY runners. They designed their own logo, and they had shirts made, and they made their own Facebook page, and they have now created the group, the Rameneers. And what they do is they go for a run anywhere from 3 to 9 miles to different locations, and then they end up at a ramen place and have ramen together. Pretty simple concept, and it's really brought out a totally different and unique membership level of people who are interested in something that they can all hang out and do together. And there's actually the group, the Rameneers, on their Facebook page not only creates their own runs, but they advertise other runs to do in the city so they can all work together. So there's actually a big group of us Rameneers this year going to run the Brooklyn Half Marathon. This just goes back to that breakout session that I had hosted, or the brainstorm session. And I just had everyone in attendance do a breakout session. And it was just to get their ideas, because the more you can tap into your members of what they want to do, the stronger support you'll have. And what I had them do is break it out into these 4 categories and come up with a list of events within each of these in order to fill our 2017 calendar. And these are just other ways that our members could get involved, because implementing an event or a program doesn't always have to be something large scale. It's about enriching membership and increasing membership and keeping them engaged. And then, of course, just how to stay connected with JETAANY or JET in general. And I think that's all I've got for you guys.
Thank you, Monica. That was awesome. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Jessica. Yes, and we'll certainly save time at the end for further discussion and questions. So I'm going to pass the ball on to Jessica. While Jessica is getting set up, does anyone have any comments or questions for Monica from her presentation? And if you do, make sure you unmute yourself.
So if no one has any questions for Monica, I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Again, my name is Jessica Burbach. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I am the current Vice President of JETAADC in Washington, D.C. I was an ALT in Shiga from 2011 to 2013, and I have been a part of the JETAADC board now for about 3 years. I was started on the board as our returning handbook chair, and the returning handbook is a pamphlet we put together for all of our new returnees about information on Washington, D.C. and life in D.C. and life with JET in D.C. as well. And then last year I was our volunteer chair, and now I'm currently our vice president. So I'm here today to talk to you guys a little bit more about best practices that JETAADC has learned and that we'd love to share with other chapters. So one of the first things that every chapter needs to think about is how you keep organized and how you stay organized. And this year, actually, is the first year that we have created a master document for all of our events. So we probably do anywhere from 1 to 5 events a month. And so that was just absolutely crazy to keep track of in your head. So this year we came out with a master document. It's a spreadsheet that we keep on our Google Docs. We have a shared Google Drive for all of us, a folder in our Google Drive that we all have access to. And so this is our master sheet that we can all look at. And you can see here that it has the date of the event, the officer who's in charge, the point person for that event. It talks about, it gives a little event description. It details how much budget we're using, which budget that's coming out of, and also we have notes. And in our notes, we also like to address how many people came to the event and the makeup of those people. So how many friends of JETs came, how many community members came, how many recently returned JETs came. And so that way we have all this information in one central document. And that also helps us when we are pulling together our activity reports at the end of the year that we need to send to Claire. So instead of having officers try to go back and remember, oh my gosh, how many people came to that Hanami event we did, we have it all in this one document. So it makes it really easy for all of us to come together and share this information. Another thing we're big on here is communication. So we have 2 different ways that we communicate. We use email, and then we also have Skype calls and in-person calls. So we actually just switched over from using Gmail aliases. So my personal email address, I'd have jessica.burbach, and then I also have vice president coming into the same Gmail address. But now we're actually using G Suite, which is a new product that Google has come out with, and that allows everyone to have their own Gmail account for their JETAADC email. So now I have my personal account, and I can also have my vice president account for JETAADC, and that way I can sync those 2 accounts, and that way I can manage the different emails for the different parts of my life in different ways. So G Suite actually costs money for most people, but you can apply if you're a nonprofit organization to get G Suite for free. So that's one of the things that we've done, and so that's a really great tool for us that we've just started to use. Another thing that we do is we have in-person meetings once a month, but also once a month we have a Skype call. And the Skype calls are not mandatory. They're for anyone really who has an event that's coming up. So because, like I said, we have anywhere between 1 to 5 events, we really need to touch base twice a month so we can figure out who's taking care of what and to see if anyone needs any help. So the Skype calls are run by myself, the vice president, and then our in-person meetings are run by the president. So the Skype calls usually last about an hour, and they're really dedicated to going through all of our events that we have each month and figuring out any of the necessary logistics. Our in-person meetings that we have are more focused on the bigger ticket items, things that we really need to discuss that we need to get into. But it's been really helpful for us to have Skype calls and in-person calls because it helps us organize ourselves and make sure that we're covering all of our bases. Another thing that we've implemented is that we really have a flexible board structure. So we have our general president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. So we always keep those positions. But the number of board positions that we have in our general board really fluctuates year to year, depending on the need that we have for the upcoming year and also for the interest, the number of people who are interested in joining the board. So for example, this coming year, we're actually hosting the national conference. So that's where 2 members from each JET chapter, all 19 JET chapters, come to DC, and we'll be hosting everyone here. So we know that we're going to need a lot more manpower. So we're going to probably bring on more co-chairs, and we'll probably maybe create an extra position or 2 to help people, to help us plan out for our national conference. So we really like to keep our board structure flexible, so that way we know if we're having more events this coming year, especially for the 30th anniversary or the national conference, that we can adjust as needed. We also like to bring on members who are outside of our board, who may have indicated that they're interested in joining the board at some point. We bring them on to help with small events here and there, so they can figure out how they can start to kind of integrate themselves into the board, to see what it would be like for them to join the board. So that's been a big push for us this year, is to really find people early on, maybe recently returnees or people who want to get more involved in JETAA, to come and then help out with little events, and so they can start kind of being trained to eventually take on a board position if they desire to. And as Monica said, we love to encourage officers to plan events that they're excited about. As she mentioned, people are way more excited to plan an event that they really love than to kind of force someone to do something. So, for example, this year we had our communications chair. She sends out all of our emails. She actually planned a Jets and Their Pets event. So they went on a local hike, and everyone brought their dog, and they had a great time. So I would like to talk a little bit more about our signature event this year that we had. It's probably the biggest event, I think, that JETAADC has ever put on. We called it Japan Day, and we actually got the idea kind of from JETAA New York, as well as from one of our members. We partnered with Big Brothers Big Sisters of the National Capital Area in Washington, D.C. It was the first time we had ever put on this event, and like I said, it was probably the largest event that we've ever had. We had over 350 attendees in one day. And so it was basically an activity day, and we joined with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And when we first talked to them, they said, you know, we're not really sure exactly how we can partner with you guys, but let's talk it through. So we had a couple meetings with them, and eventually they said, you know what? At the end of the year, we always have a big end of the year blowout party. So why don't we partner with you guys and do this big blowout party, and we'll just make it a holiday party with a Japanese twist. So that's actually what we ended up doing. Through a really generous grant from Sasakawa USA, we got $1,500, and that really helped us to expand the program and really go above and beyond for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So in order to execute this event, which was the largest event that I think we've ever done, we created a special task force just for the event. So we had 3 board members, and then we actually brought on someone else from outside the board to help as well, who was really interested in putting on the event. Again, we created another master spreadsheet for all of us to track the budget, the activities, all the supplies purchased. I think we probably had somewhere between 8 different activities. We had 60 different volunteers. So we had so many people and so many things to keep track of. So having that one master spreadsheet that we could all refer back to, that was our source of truth, that was incredibly helpful. And another thing that we really tried to do was to make clear delegations of whose responsibility was what, and then to empower people to make decisions. There were so many different moving pieces that we couldn't just have one person making all the decisions. We really needed to empower everyone to feel like they could make decisions on their own. I think that's really special and really important when you do events, that you make people feel like they can take ownership of something, and when people feel ownership, they'll make sure they see it through. So that's one of the important things that we really wanted to push through with our volunteers and with our task force, that everyone felt empowered to make decisions. Another thing Monica also mentioned was that they do a lot of crowdsourcing, so tapping into the different strengths of their membership. So we did the exact same thing for Japan Day. Because it was such a large event, we really had to reach out and find people who could help us. So I actually spoke with JETAA New York to talk to them about what they did for Japan Day, and we actually used some of the materials that they've used with their Big Brothers Big Sisters event. Someone here knows someone who works at a local Japanese restaurant. They donated something like 9 trays of karage and sushi, and for many of the kids, it was their first time ever eating sushi, so that was wonderful. Through our listserv, we got someone who was on our listserv. They're not a JET, but they're a friend of JET, and they contacted me and they said, hey, while you guys are having this event, I'm actually bringing some 40 Japanese university students through DC that weekend. Can we come and help? And those Japanese students were an integral part of our volunteers. So we could not have done this event without them. So just by connecting with someone outside of JET, we were able to bring in all these volunteers. And then we tapped into our member skills. So we had someone demonstrate kendo. Someone also demonstrated mochi pounding, and then everyone could use their Japanese skills to help teach calligraphy and teach the kids how to write in katakana. Here's a quick list of some of the other events that we do. I think one unique thing about DC is that we have an affinity group at the State Department. So a lot of people who work at the State Department are former JETs. So they formed an affinity group at the State Department called JETS at State. So we try to do a couple events with them every year. So we had a couple of talks, we'll have happy hours, we'll have networking events. I think we'll also try to do some more professional building events where people can talk to State Department, people who are actually working in the State Department, to figure out if a career in the Foreign Service perhaps is something for them. We also like to, we know our audience, and so people in DC a lot of people work for the federal government, so we do a federal resume webinar. We're also doing a tour of the Library of Congress this coming week. So we really like to tap into the local flavor of DC. And then also we have events where we use the skills of the people in our membership. So we have someone who knows how to make his own ramen. So he has all the supplies to make his own ramen. So we have ramen events once a year. So that's really great. And then finally, I encourage every chapter to take a look at what the events that they do, and to look at their current goals and really think about where there's room for growth. So for me personally, when we're talking about doing something like our Japan Day event, it made me realize that, wow, we really don't do as much as we could within our community with kids in the DC community. So that made me think, wow, there's really a gap there. That's definitely an area of growth for us. So I would suggest that you make small growth goals and then revisit them every few months. For example, we hold a lot of our events within the city of Washington, D.C. So one of our growth goals could be trying to have an event once every few months in the Northern Virginia or the Southern Maryland kind of D.C. suburb area. And finally, don't get stuck in a rut. Challenge yourself in your chapter. Try to think outside of the box and try to think of where are those areas for growth and where can we really grow as a chapter, and try to find some new ways that we can engage with our membership. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thank you, Jessica. That was awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball to Mark. Oops. Change presenter. Does that work?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to share some of the things that we're doing out here in Northern California. I'm Mark Frey. I was a JET in Kumamoto from 2002 to 2006, and so I've been an officer out here at JETAANC for about the past 10 years in different roles. And so I've kind of seen, like many of you, all the different angles and different ways that you can skin the same cat to put together a very effective program that serves all your stakeholders, but also hopefully that you can enjoy and you know, make some enjoyable events out of as well and get something out of it yourself. So, you know, recently, and for the past 3 years, until I recently stepped down, I was president of our chapter. And so I tried to start every officer executive committee meeting with our mission. And when you're thinking about putting together your program, and I'm sure a lot of you do this, it's good to make sure that you have that lens and that you are doing everything that you do is related, or you can relate back to your mission. And so we've defined our mission out here as threefold. One is obviously to support our alumni on both a personal and a professional basis, support the JET program, everything from recruiting all the way through interviews, sending them off and then welcoming them back. And then, that great grassroots internationalization part of the JET program that we like to continue in our own community. And so in different ways, when we put together our yearly program, we want to make sure that we're hitting at least one of those points of our mission. Second thing that we've done recently, and I know other chapters like New York and perhaps other chapters have done a better job of this, is to get some input. So I think, for those of you that have been around JETAA long enough, you get a sense of kind of what people want. And obviously, you talk to a lot of different alumni. But I think there's no substitute than to kind of reach out to them with a survey. And so we did this last year. And you can see the results here as far as the type of events that the respondents are interested in. And I don't think that there were a lot of big surprises. In fact, what's funny is that it shows that, as you all know, our alumni base is really diverse, and they have diverse needs. They're at different points in their life. And so our survey results really reflected that and kind of validated that, there are diverse needs out there. And I think that's one of the major challenges that chapters face is obviously we're all volunteer, we have limited resources, but there are so many different needs, so many different demographics, and so many different kinds of things you could do. So, the point is if you can get input from your alumni and be strategic about it, you're going to, make sure that your program is aligned with what your stakeholders need. And so just on a geographical basis, this gives you an idea of kind of what the respondents are spread out in. And so, that's obviously, a consideration as well. So taking that input, this is just a snapshot of what our programs are currently. And we're a larger chapter, but, all of this is really scalable. And I'm sure you all have, different versions of this. But you can see that it's, our programs are spread across, really not only different kinds of events, which you can see here, but also, we consider as part of our program all of the chapter operations and ways that we can build community and reach out to people. So it's not just events, but you can see we list communications and social media, which is a huge way, as we know, that people are connecting outside of in-person meetings. And we also have our scholarship up there as well. And so this just gives us a kind of a picture of all the things we're trying to do, and it fits it together onto one page. So how do we support these programs? Here's a snapshot of our operations. And again, I think it looks pretty close to what a lot of you have set up for your own chapters. But, these lists where this chart was built off of, again, what we saw as kind of the basic needs from an operations standpoint that we needed to support our program. So it's obviously you need the money and the funds, and so finance is important. You need to get the word out about it, so communications is important. Community outreach, we're very blessed here in Northern California to have a ton of great community organizations that we're able to partner with. Developing your membership base is a big part of that. And then just pure operations, what is the infrastructure you need to be able to deliver your program? So you've seen versions of this, I guess, that Monica and Jessica presented, but this is just kind of our own version here. And I'm going to show you two different ways you can think of putting together a program plan. So this one's kind of by role, and so I just took a snapshot of my own plan as president. And so you see I have listed my goals for the year, description, when I think it's going to happen, and then these kind of measurement things that we can use to track your progress throughout the year. So how will I know it's a success, you know? And then what is my progress? What is the status? And then on the right there, you see we have some space for the all-important budget and the budget tracking as well. And so, you know, this is something that I can come back to periodically throughout the year and check in on. As Jessica said, you know, just kind of continually seeing if it still makes sense. And so this is one way that you can put together a program plan for the year by each person's role. And then similar to, I think, what Monica showed, we have a matrix for the year, which is kind of just a calendar. And again, it's just a visual way to see how everything fits together and making sure that you're covering all your bases. And it's another thing that you can revisit with your teams, you know, periodically, just to make sure it all makes sense. Kind of diving down to the event level. Obviously, you know, some of us feel like we're kind of planning a wedding sometimes, even for our smaller events, just because there's just a lot that goes into it. And I guess this is as good a time as any to just say something about thinking about the experience of your attendees and experience of your members and the people that you come in touch with, and thinking about what kind of experience you want them to have and how you want them to feel about it and what you want them to say to other people about your event, I think is a really good way to put into perspective and to help you understand what you need to do for them to have that experience. So do you want them to feel welcome and you want them to feel like, you know, they're being drawn into a community? Do you want them to feel like their voices are heard? You know, whatever it is, I think if you're able to articulate what experience you want them to have, I think let you go a long way in planning the kind of event that will allow them to have that experience. And thinking about experience can also extend to your officers, too. I mean, what kind of experience do you want them to have in planning out the event? I mean, we all know it can be kind of stressful, especially as the event nears. And so just thinking about ways that you can make it easier and have it be a really positive growth experience for your officers as well. So this is just a very simple work plan for our 25th anniversary gala, which we put together a couple of years ago. And, you know, very simple. A lot of you are familiar with this kind of format, but it's a spreadsheet in Excel or Google Sheets. And you can, it has the basic task and the owner, the status, you know, any notes. You could add a budget element to this if you needed to, but you can very easily filter for, you know, open items. You know, you can filter for, you know, just a certain owner if you want to have a one-on-one with them or just focus on what they're doing, or even if they want to see, you know, what they're on the list for. Just a very easy way to organize and keep it all on paper and not in your head. Obviously, Silicon Valley is a big force out here in Northern California, and so some of you are familiar with different kind of productivity tools, but we've had great success with this tool and app called Slack. And it's free. It costs a little bit more if you want to get some more licenses, but it's free for a certain group. And as you can see here on the left, you know, I use it mostly on my phone, so these are just snapshots from my phone. You can set up different channels that can map to all those different areas, you know, for your operations and your programming, right? And then you can very easily go into those channels, and as you see, you know, in the middle there and on the side, this is a channel to plan this year's Shinenkai. And so you can very easily tag people, you know, with questions. You know, on the right there is kind of my last minute questions for people before the event. And the great virtue of it is that it keeps everything organized in a very intuitive, easy way. So you're not searching through emails. You don't have to feel like you check emails because, you can go into this app and it kind of notifies you when there's a new message for you. So, all of us have busy lives, and so it allows us to basically, go in and participate, when we have time. So that's Slack. A lot of you have event checklists, but, again, just ways you can make it easy and a good experience for your event planners and organizers. And so just a simple event checklist, and then it gives them peace of mind, too, that they're not leaving out anything. And then we've also found over the years, like many of you, what we need as a base to have a successful event. And if something of that's missing, it might not be such a great event. We leverage Eventbrite, which is one of these event platforms. We've had great success with it. And so I just highly recommend, if it's not Eventbrite, getting a platform for events. It becomes a repository, and you'll see that it's a pretty robust dashboard, and so you can really manage your events really well. You can send messages to people. You can see here we have a wait list. Obviously, if you have tickets that you're selling, it can really help. And then it also becomes a great record of our events that our treasurer can use when he's putting together his reports. After the event, again, that kind of experience, you want to memorialize it in some way, and so we do it using our Facebook page and just the photo albums. And so we create a photo album for each of our events. We drop the photos in there, and then we have a nice description. And this becomes kind of a nice public record. So when people go onto our page, they say, well, what are they doing, and what are they really up to? And they see all these people having fun and all these great events. And so it's a very simple way that you can keep a record of your event and then kind of build, use that to build enthusiasm and to share so that people will want to get more involved. And then thank you note, which a lot of you guys do, but what I like about thank you note to the participants is that A, it gives them a nice feeling, B, it gives you an excuse to link them to your newsletter or to your page. It also allows you to allow them to give you feedback, which is just so important and so useful just to see how they reacted to your event. And then also to invite them in and to invite them to get more involved. So, I'm a big fan of thank you notes, and it can actually be really useful for you. Very quickly, just to wrap it up, I just want to talk about kind of building community. And I'm using as a test case Kabuki Club, which I started a few years ago, just from my own interest in Kabuki. And so I started with just 5 people at the public library, and I advertised it, out on these different event sites that we have here in Northern California. And again, it was like 5 people who started who were into Kabuki, and by, chipping away at it and starting very small and growing it slow, I was able to turn it into an event where, now we have a partnership with the Japan Cultural and Community Center in San Francisco's Japantown, and now, 20, 30, 40 people show up. And so to build that community aspect of it, here's just an example of one of the programs I made for one of our classes. We made a website, and on that website are a ton of resources. So people from around the world are accessing this website because it's one of the few websites that has English information about Kabuki and Japanese performing arts. And so once you have those people coming from around the world, you can link them to a Google group or a mailing list or discussion group and really create a global community, And then I just use this as an example to say that you can have areas of your program that are mini communities. And I'm going to cite Stephen Horowitz, who's a great sage in many ways, but definitely with this idea of being able to build these mini communities. Recently, our folks down in Monterey Bay, which is quite far from San Francisco and kind of the center of our operations, started a subchapter down there. And it's as simple as creating a separate Facebook group that they can gather on and communicate. And so now with Facebook and other social media tools, it's very easy to create these little mini communities as part of your programming. The other thing, which I think Jessica touched upon, was this concept of being flexible and being nimble. And so we're trying to think of different ways, as you saw that chart, I mean, it looks very structured as far as what our program is, but having those spaces where you encourage and make your alumni feel like they can just very spontaneously and casually put together a meetup. Maybe it's JET parents who want to meet up in a park somewhere. And facilitating that, and again, giving them permission and ownership and letting them know that, that's totally okay, and that your officers will support them with funding or communications or whatever it might be. But basically empowering them and enabling them and giving them an easy way, whether it's through Facebook group or in other ways, to very easily create their own mini events and create their own community. So just in the interest of time, I won't go into too much of a detail, but just to say that we're available to share, how we manage these larger events like our 25th anniversary gala, and also our 311 fundraiser and 113 project screening as well was another kind of big event where we had a panel of a bunch of people. And it was a real community event. So happy to share more about those with you at any time. And with that, really happy to continue the conversation with you. My contact information is here. I'm also interested in your ideas. Obviously, we all have different ways that we're chipping away at the same issue of how do you put a quality program together and then execute it. And so I'd love to hear your feedback as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thanks to all three of our speakers, Monica, Jessica, and Mark. These were just amazing presentations, and I'm so excited to be able to provide them. We'll post them to the USJETAA website along with the recording, and I think if I can get all of your presentations, we'll put that in a resources page so that we can share it with the rest of the chapter, the different chapters. I think I'm going to switch this over to me real fast. So basically, if we can do a little bit of question and answers, that would be wonderful. I think that just remember to unmute yourself so that you can chime in, and why don't we just open it up for discussion? Or not.
Oh, hey guys, this is Jessica. Mark, I actually have a question for you. JETAADC has been looking to use Eventbrite, but does it cost money or is it free?
Yeah, great question. There is a free version. Obviously, they take out a certain percentage of each ticket price, which you can choose to pass on to your ticket buyers, which we usually do. Most people don't mind, and they're pretty used to it by now. But you can also they also have a program for nonprofits that actually takes out a little less, for each ticket for them. So I highly recommend it. I've used it for years now, and there's other applications out there, but yeah, I highly recommend it.
Any other questions? Comments?
This is Monica. Just to have a comment, in putting my own presentation together, I kind of learned a lot about our chapter, but it was so great to sit back and listen to what Mark and Jessica had to say from other big chapters that, you know, deal with the same issues that we do and just how they kind of get through it and how they host these events. And some of the things Mark and Jessica mentioned, I'm sitting over here taking notes to be able to take back to our executive team and board of directors and say, guys, we need to think about this, and let's do thank you notes and, you know, follow-up surveys, because, you know, any other touch point we can have with our members is just so much beneficial to keeping engagement levels high. So thank you, guys.
I have a comment. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought these were all really terrific presentations, because there's a lot of things that we all do in JETAA activities, and to have them kind of organized in the way that they were presented and themes as best practices, I think this is a really valuable resource and a really valuable way to put the information together. And I think it says something about maturity of our organization, of JETAA these days. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I don't know if you all saw Paige's question. She doesn't have a mic on her computer, but she wanted to know how you guys engage alumni who are not active on social media. Does anyone have a suggestion there?
This is Monica, Yuki. We sent out a letter, and it goes out including all the events that are happening, along with job listings, wrap-ups from other events. And it goes out on a need basis, and then one-offs are sent depending on how large the event is, and reminders. But typically, social media is the main form of
yeah. So is that by email, or is it by hard, like snail mail?
No, snail mail ended about 8 years ago. And it is all done through MailChimp. Okay. But if we do have large events, especially our 10+ events, I like to focus on sending out personalized emails to our JETs that are 10 or 20+, because it's knowing your audience. It's knowing what they need in order to be connected to the event. And social media posts are not for everyone. I miss a lot of things on social media too, but something that hits my inbox or a text message definitely will pique my interest more. So I can definitely understand that.
Okay.
And this is Jessica. For our 10+ events, we really rely on word of mouth, as Paige is hinting at that some people really don't use social media. And as Monica was saying, knowing your audience, I would say that people who have returned 10+ and more probably don't use as much social media as the rest of us do. So we really rely on word of mouth. So if we have someone who we know who is a 10+er or a 20+er, we ask them to ask their friends and to spread the word within their networks, because we probably don't have as much insight into their networks as they do. So we really rely on them and word of mouth to spread the word about our events for them.
Great. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, I'm going to thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited to, one, see just how much information is out there. And I know just from the USJETAA like Facebook page, a lot of people, they weren't able to call into the meeting, but they're happy to know that it's being recorded and that we'll have the information available, and I know that that will be useful. So I would encourage all of you to share the links once they're put up with your networks, just because I do know that, you know, the chapters and individual alumni, they get so much information just from other alumni, and this is wonderful, and I really, really appreciate all the time and effort that all three of our host speakers provided today. That it really is great. Also, I wanted to remind everyone that next Monday, or this coming Monday, we're going to be talking about obtaining 501c3 nonprofit status. I think whether you have nonprofit status or not, it will be an interesting discussion. Walter Derks, who was the attorney that worked with USJETAA, he's going to be speaking along with Brenda McKinney, who's JETAA New York, although she was JETAA DC. And we're looking forward to having both of them speak about this as well, both the pros and the cons. So I would love to, you know, have you all involved and provide your input as well. I guess if there are no more questions, are there any more questions, comments, anything? Thank you all so much for spending a little bit of your afternoon with us. And thanks again to CGP and Claire for helping make this possible. We're excited to be able to present it, and we look forward to other ideas and programs later on. So thank you.